Bueno, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Mucha gente guapa y bonita aquí. Voy a hablar en inglés. Tenéis traducción simultánea que lo necesitéis, ¿vale? Cherien, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here.
No, I'm fine. I live here. You don't live here. But
I'm very happy to be here in Madrid.
you're coming from Seville, right?
Yes, I was just at the film festival. Exactly.
Okay. How did that go?
It was amazing. Really beautiful screening. It's been just unbelievably humbling to travel all over the world with this film and to talk to different audiences. And it's been very emotional responses in every place. So it's been beautiful.
Well, as you see, she wrote, she started, and she directed the film, which is pretty amazing. But on top of that, it's based on or is inspired in the story of your own father, which makes it even more difficult to handle in the sense that you're not only dealing with the execution of it, but also with the delicacy of the heart of what it means to you as an artist and as a person. So how do you deal with those different realities and being able to do such a beautiful work where, if you ask me as an audience, I can tell that everything is beautifully put together. And for example, I've never, ever felt manipulated for a second in your movie. I felt everything so honest and so raw, but at the same time so beautifully show and explain that really reaches every layer in the audience, in the intellectual, the emotional, and the physical of feeling the oppression. So I'm sorry for the long question. How do you deal with those realities, director, writer, and actress, while you are dealing with the real story of your own, not a real story, but can you share?
Yeah, a story that's inspired by my family, particularly my father, who is Palestinian from the West Bank. He was exiled in 1967, so he could not return to live in Palestine. He was automatically made a refugee. And it took him many years to get foreign citizenship to return just to visit his homeland and his family, you know, the only home he'd ever known. So I grew up, of course, in the diaspora as a result, and really grew up kind of feeling his heartache and pain over his exile, over the situation and the deteriorating situation, seeing his health suffer as a result of just the chronic stress and worry. And really the movie is inspired by, in a way, my kind of watching how the situation changed him over time, and really just kind of thinking, you know, it's amazing to me, you know, Palestinians are relegated to nameless, faceless headlines. No one really knows the impact of these political events on people. And my father is in exile, and look at how much he's suffering, and look at how much his health is suffering. He had heart attacks in in his 50s, and so in a way, I was sort of observing my relationship with him and just looking at the different generations of my family and all of the different reactions to what was happening in Palestine, what should happen in Palestine, seeing how my identity was forming in opposition to my dad, that I didn't want to respond in the same way he was, that I wanted to find a different way. So the movie is quite personal, but I also have distance, you know, and I think that distance is quite possibly why I was able to make the film. Having that kind of distance to look and observe and notice and take note of and therefore kind of craft a story around. And then, you know, and I think that distance, you know, I had windows into occupation growing up. My family, you know, we would go visit Palestine, and so I had these experiences while there. But again, I always got to leave. I had the privilege of leaving, and I had this horrible guilt because I was able to leave. So I was left with this kind of responsibility, like I must do something with my privilege. I must use it to like help, tell the story that's not being told and help change the narrative. But so I have this responsibility, but I also have this distance that allows me kind of, I guess, an easier kind of path, an easier sort of way, a different perspective, a different way of seeing things. And I think that's really what allowed me to tell the story. The writing of it, the directing of it, the acting of it, I mean, all of those are such deep things, and each process took a lot of kind of time. The writing of this, I started thinking of the story in like 2014.
I was going to ask you, when do you decide to go to 1948 until the actual day? And that's so ambitious. And at the same time, the first time I approached the project, when you beautifully and generously offered me to watch it, and I fell immediately in love with it, I thought, a movie from 1948 till today, that's huge. How the movie is going to survive to that without being a mandate, without being a statement, without being a political manifest. And it's not. It's such a human story, of course with a political and social background, but it's about people going through the same wheel of unfortune over and over and over, an oppression.
That's right.
But when do you decide to go that far and that long ago?
Well, you can't really tell the Palestinian story without at least starting in 1948, and some would argue you have to start even sooner than that. But 1948 is the year of the Nakba, and that is a collective trauma for every Palestinian. And so if I was going to look at my own trauma that was kind of passed down from my father, then I had to really look at the collective trauma of the Nakba. And, my father's trauma of exile is the trauma of so many Palestinians from 1948. And it's, sadly, this film is such a common Palestinian experience. Like, I don't think you could find a single Palestinian family who wouldn't see themselves in some way in this movie. So 1948 was a given. I knew I had to. And as someone who grew up in the West, surrounded by these horrifically dehumanizing headlines my entire life, and then my family experienced the racism that resulted from those headlines, that resulted from that dehumanization. I grew up really wondering, like, wow, why don't people know anything about us? I was raised mostly in a small town in Ohio, traveling back to Palestine and Jordan quite often as a kid. But in this small town in the 1980s, no one knew where Palestine was, who the Palestinians were, why they were fighting in this so-called intifada and throwing rocks. And so there were these images that I always saw on the news. And I just thought, like, why doesn't anyone know who that kid is at the protest standing in front of a tank? Why is that kid willing to stand up to a tank? And again, the Nakba was like, not only did people not know about it, it was almost taboo to talk about it. It still is in some places. I mean, maybe now, given what we've seen in the last 2 years, there's a little bit more space. There's a little bit more of a like a window or an opportunity to talk about it and for people to be a little bit more open. But I think the Nakba was always something that I wanted to, always a story that I wanted to tell. And so when I started thinking about the story in 2014, I had made 2 feature films, and I thought, okay, I'm ready for something bigger. Maybe I should think about this Nakba film. And I knew, the Nakba never ended for Palestinians, so it had to be ongoing. It had to be multi-generational. There was no way that, telling a story just of 1948 wasn't really enough for me. I wanted to tell the story of a family, and I wanted, as someone who felt so politicized my entire life. I mean, every Palestinian is so politicized from the moment we're born. And from the moment you can speak, at least when you're growing up in the West, people are like, well, what do you think of what's happening over there? Or, they want to ask your political opinion. They want to know where you stand. And so I wanted to focus on the family. I wanted to focus on how one family is impacted by these events that are imposed on them, because that's the reality of the Palestinian experience. We never asked for any of this, but we have suffered through it, and it has impacted us to such a horrible degree. And I don't think that people really understand like the impact of something as simple as a humiliation. I mean, I say as simple, but you know, you see it and then you're like crushed by it. I mean, I've had people tell me that that scene is worse than the kid being shot to them. That experience would
We're
be.
talking about that scene, the scene of the father being humiliated by the Israeli occupation forces. And I was saying, how beautiful is the story of men through generations, fathers, grandfathers, sons, being told by a woman, and how that tool of you being the narrative, you being the soul of the story, allows us to see the weakness and the fragility of the men that are being humiliated as men, as a father who was born to protect his son. And I think you were saying, I think we in Spain, I don't want to call in the name of, I don't want to be the voice of Spain, but what I mean as an Spaniard, 56 years old, we've been living under a dictatorship for 40 years. We know about oppression. We know about people being killed, disappeared. We know about the impunity of the crimes that still today are not being cleared out. And we as men and women, we've also been held by the strength of our mothers, of the women that were allowing us to fight outside, but also to be welcome inside and to be whole, to be held by them, because their real strength relies on them. And I think that's something that relates to us when we see the movie. I think we share with that. And that's why I think it's a story about the hatred and the rage and the pain and the hatred that can cause to men to get the weapon and fight back. But also it's about the love of, as you say, resistance. Existence is resistance, no? That's what you say to him, right?
In the film,
Yeah.
I think the Imam says your humanity is also resistance.
Resistance.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the moment you forget your humanity, then they win.
That's right. That's
But
exactly
how
right.
difficult is that?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult, and that is absolutely something I really wanted to explore when I sat down to write this. You know, again, inspired by like this inheritance of trauma. Like, what do you do with this? What do you do with all of this suffering? And what do you do with an ongoing trauma? Is there a way to even heal from an ongoing trauma? And of course, I wrote this long before, you know, the last 2 years of genocide that we've been watching. So, you know, now it's even like I don't know what we can expect from the children of Gaza in the next decade. I mean, I'm horrified to think of what may happen. And my fear is that the world is going to forget what we did to them. But yes, this question of what can you do? What can you do with this pain? What can you do with this suffering? Wanting to just bring that in and just ask the question, just in this gentle way, leave people with that question. You know, how do we hold on to our humanity in these horrific circumstances? You know, I know for me as someone living on the outside, I'm not in direct danger. I'm not experiencing, you know, manifest violence and occupation. And so I feel it is my responsibility to try to heal and to try to channel my rage and my, you know, grief into something. But we can't expect that from everyone. And with this film, I knew, you know, I wanted to follow 3 generations of men, again, inspired by my father. But I wanted the voice of a strong woman. I wanted a spiritual perspective. And, you know, in Palestine, so often, you know, people will talk about the women and children. But the men, it's as if we've just written them all off as terrorists. You know, it's as if, you know, we just, you can't defend a Palestinian man. I mean, my God. And it's just so unbelievably tragic. And I really did want, with this movie, to make it like to kind of honor Palestinian men and to show like look at how many different responses you can get in 3 different generations of men, different responses to occupation, different kinds of masculinity. But also, like, look at how much we're brutalizing them. And, you know, in some ways, it's like within this film, you know, the Palestinian man is kind of broken. And the woman has to come into her power in the family in order to try to heal the family in a way. And so that was really something that I kind of wanted to explore, to find a balance as well of the kind of masculine and feminine throughout the film.
It's beautifully portrayed, and it's very, very moving and heartbreaking. And as you said, it's also very true how the Palestinian men are so diminished to something that they are not. And
That's right.
first of all, as terrorists, and second of all, as people that have to go through humiliation and surrendering and giving up in order to survive and make their families survive. But the dignity, the pride, the strength, the love, the laughter, those things are not shown because they don't allow us to see it, because
Right.
they are either one way or the other. Anyway, that's a personal note on why I love so much the fact that you are seeing, as you said, 3 different ways of reacting to the same oppression. Can you please
Right.
tell us what happened when you were preparing the movie in the West Bank, and then what happened the day after you were preparing the movie? I mean, I don't know the day after, but days after you were landing in the West Bank to prepare the movie.
Well, I landed in the West Bank in May of 2023. So I had many months of pre-production on the ground with my crew, local crew, you know, worked with a lot of Palestinian crew on the film. And I had crew fly in from Germany. The film is an official co-production between Germany and Cyprus. We were always planning to shoot 90% of the movie in Palestine and 10% in Cyprus to take advantage of tax credits, and also to shoot big scenes that might be too risky to shoot in Palestine. So after prepping, you know, the film, and I had German crew arriving, we had a whole welcome party for them in early October of 2023. We did our big tech recce where we took everyone, you know, we were planning to shoot all over the country, by the way. We were based in the West Bank, kind of between the West Bank and Jaffa, but mostly in the West Bank. And we were planning to shoot in Jericho and Nablus and refugee camps, and then also in Haifa and Jaffa, Tel Aviv. And so we had just finished our tech recce in Tel Aviv, Jaffa on October the 6th. And we returned to Ramallah to, of course, wake up to the news of, you know, what happened on the morning of October the 7th. And really, you know, we were 2 weeks away from shooting at that point. So we had done all of the work. We had begun construction on our refugee camp location. We had amassed a giant 3-story warehouse of like beautifully crafted, carefully curated props and set dressing from all of the different time periods. Things that were never before seen in cinema from the actual Nakba. We had a whole bus that actually drove people during the Nakba that we were going to be using. People were so excited, Palestinians were so excited to be making a movie about the Nakba and kind of a big historic Palestinian film. But within days, you know, as things really escalated very quickly, and we felt a great amount of tension. You know, we knew that we were going to have to evacuate. So, you know, West Bank cities were being sealed off. Checkpoints were closing. There were rumors that the border was going to close and we weren't going to be able to leave if we didn't leave, you know, immediately. And so that was all I needed to hear to like start evacuating people. Of course, my foreign crew was suddenly like, get me out of here. Like, what have I gotten myself into? Their families were really worried. So we evacuated through Jordan to Cyprus, and we ended up shooting, you know, the 10% of the film we'd always planned to shoot there. And I was always hoping to return to Palestine. You know, I was always thinking, oh, we'll get to go back. Of course, I had no idea that things would just continue to escalate and escalate and escalate. And we eventually made our way to Jordan. We realized that we were going to have to totally re-prep the entire 90% of the film all over again. So we shot most of the film in the refugee camps in the north of Jordan, which was great because we worked with the Palestinian refugee community in really what is the telling of their own story. I mean, this is the story of how Palestinians became refugees in many ways. And so we worked in 2 camps, one camp of Palestinian refugees from 1948 and one camp of Palestinian refugees from Gaza from 1967. So it's called the Gaza refugee camp. And then we shot the end of the film in Greece. So we ended up shooting, and then we shot what we could remotely in Palestine, by the way. So some of the images that you see in the film, we hired like a drone pilot to shoot the drone shot. We hired a DP in Palestine to shoot some of the visuals that I wanted, and then we kind of married them with cast, against green screen and VFX. There were certain places I really wanted to show that I just was like, I will never find them anywhere else. One of the things that was important to me was I wanted Nakba survivors to watch this film, because there is a whole generation of people that we are losing now who have never been able to return to Palestine. And I wanted them through this film to feel like they were able to go to Palestine, to feel like they had spent time in Palestine during the watching of this film. And so it was really important to me to be that authentic for a Nakba survivor to sit down and not know that the movie was not shot in Palestine. And I've had 2 Nakba survivors from Yafa watch the film, and I mean, it reminded them of their childhood. Like, they had no idea it wasn't shot there, which was great. But I think the craziest part of the way we had to make this movie was that, of course, it was all during a state of total crisis, financial crisis, logistical crisis. All of the money we spent in Palestine was lost, gone. So we were constantly having to raise more money. And then we were making a movie about what was happening as it was happening. So it was, we're watching a genocide as we're making a movie about ethnic cleansing. And so it was like really immersive. Like, you're suddenly, life and art are merging and you are living the situation. And you're grieving on camera, but you're actually grieving. You're not acting, you're channeling your own grief and the grief that you're witnessing. So it was a tremendously cathartic experience. I mean, the movie became so personal for so many of us, and especially the actors. I mean, Saleh and I, it was like real anger, real grief, real, all of it was just...
The grandfather?
Saleh, who plays my husband in the film.
Husband.
Yeah.
They are the same family, right? For
They
real.
are.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah, they're this dynasty of actors, from Palestine, right?
That's right, the Bekri family.
Yeah.
The only dynasty of Palestinian actors of one family.
Amazing actors.
They are. There's 7 actors in the family. 7 actors, starting with Muhammad Bekri, who plays the grandfather. He's like the original Bekri. And his 2 sons play, one plays my husband and the other one plays Sharif, the younger version of him in 1948. And then actually his nephew plays teenage Noor. So it's 4 Bekris in the film. Yeah, they were amazing to work with, and it was amazing for me to have the choice of casting them, because it certainly made my job as a director a lot easier. To have people who not only resemble each other physically, but they sound alike, they have similar mannerisms.
It's a family. It's amazing. I mean, you buy into it like that. It flows so well. The reality of that DNA in those actors. Of course, they are real, but also you have to be able to show it and not be shy about it.
Yeah, exactly. And they brought their own dynamics. I mean, Saleh and his dad, they obviously, they brought so much of their own relationship to the film, and that was really, really beautiful.
My phone is ringing. I think it's the Mossad. Cut the conversation. Well, sorry. In my name, not in her name. I would like to end before we open to questions about your father. We were talking backstage about your dad. Your dad is 80-something, 84, you said?
So, yeah. 84.
And you are a little bit reluctant to show him the movie, right? Because what it means it could mean to him at every level. Which reminded me, and I was telling the story, and some of the people here that I know, they're loving friends of mine. My mother passed away 4 years ago, and there's this amazing play about Lorca de Juan Diego Boto, Una noche sin luna, y me acuerdo que no la llevé porque sabía que le iba a dar un patatús si veía esa obra, por la belleza artística, humana, pero también lo que significaría para ella, ¿no? En una edad en la que estaba débil. Me da mucha pena que no la haya visto, pero sé que no podía llevarla. I'm sorry, I was telling the story. And I think it's a little bit the same, no? For you two, not having been able yet to show it to your father. And what do you think you're going to do with that?
Well, I am hoping that the film will screen at a festival or movie theater near him so that he can see it with an audience on a big screen, because I think that, you know, it is going to be a very emotional experience for him to watch the film. And so I don't want him to watch it alone. I don't want him to watch it, even just with the family. I want him to watch it with an audience where he can feel the love and the embrace of the audience afterwards, and the solidarity within the audience that I have felt, when I've taken this film around. And I think that's so important. It's so important right now. It's always been important, I think, for Palestinians, but really especially right now. So I'm hoping to show it to him that way. Yeah, I definitely dread a little bit, like sharing it with him.
Do you have sisters or brothers?
I have 4 sisters.
Okay.
5 women in the family.
Oh, wow. So you will be all around him, like embracing him, no? Like near him.
Yeah. Well, I wish we lived in one place. We're all kind of scattered, all over the world. Like most Palestinians, we're scattered in different parts of the world.
But for that screen, they have to go.
Yeah.
They have to go. I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Bueno, vamos a abrir a preguntas, ¿no? Si tenéis.
Thank you very much for the both of you, because me as a Palestinian from the diaspora, I'm very happy that you talk about Palestine, and because Israel has all this genocide state, talk about their propaganda, and that's what Western countries have bought for all these years. We are not numbers. Mm-hmm. Most of the Palestinians that are in Gaza come from that beautiful Palestine.
That's right. And a lot of them come from Jaffa,
yes,
the city in the film.
I am from Haifa, and for me, I thank you very much for this opportunity to show, that we are not numbers, that we are also getting love, that we had a beautiful past, and that for us, for the diaspora, we are whole life imagining how was Palestinian before the bombs, the checkpoints, the apartheid wall. And I'm not going to ask you anything. I only wanted to thank you, because we have been waiting for so many years to make a film that talks from our side. And only to turn this pain, I ask the rest of the people to continue fighting with us, to continue pressuring our government so our government can pressure Israel to respect human rights, and that we are able to go back home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Había una pregunta ahí arriba, ¿verdad?
Bueno, enhorabuena. Es una película fantástica. Un viaje duro y real. Y lo que os quería preguntar yo, la parte de la donación de órganos, esa, al principio decís que está basada en hechos históricos, pero ¿esa parte es real también?
Is the organ donation based on real events? Yeah. Yes, I heard that. Yes, thank you. The organ donation is not based on true events, but it did happen. Back in 2005, there was a internationally breaking news story about a Palestinian man in the Jenin refugee camp whose 12-year-old son was shot in the head by Israeli soldiers. He was playing with a toy gun, and they thought the child had a real gun. And so they shot him in the head, and his father donated his organs. And I thought that was a beautiful story, and I never forgot it. What was that?
Very, very accurate and very beautiful. Very,
Oh.
very pointed out.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Sí, bueno, es que también te digo. I don't want to cry.
It's okay.
My question is, where does this film go now? It's here, thank you. It's here, thank you. But it's going to be shown in Israel. It's going to be shown where? Sorry.
Don't ever apologize for being emotional. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your emotion. The film is, thankfully, we have distributors all over the world. Here in Spain, Karma Films is distributing. And so I thank them for that. They were among the first distributors, along with Italy and Germany, if you can believe that. Amazing distributor in Germany who picked up the movie right away. France finally picked up the film, the UK. We have great distributors in many different places. It was difficult in some places, like the US. We did not get mainstream distribution. Every mainstream distributor turned the film down. Many said that they were afraid of the subject matter. I just want you to stop and think about that. If they said that about any other film, about any other group of people, what would we call that?
We would call that racism.
Exactly. We would call that racism. So the film is now out in the world, and I hope that it will be seen as widely as possible. So please help, spread the word about it. I think it is very important for this film to be seen in the West, and particularly in places like the US and the UK and many other places. Israel, I think, is really hard. And of course, I'm part of the boycott. So I have to be careful about where and who I would be willing to screen the film with there. But obviously the film will be released through a Palestinian company. So it will be released in different parts of Palestine and cities like Haifa. So I don't know, we'll see who goes to see it. But for me, I know that my character is speaking to an Israeli man, but I think that she's speaking to everyone. And I think, it's funny because I know the gentleman brought up the organ donation. And maybe I should speak a little bit to why I chose that, because I know I talked about the news story, and the news story always stayed with me. And when I started writing this script, I thought about this movie for 5 years before I ever started writing it. I bought a notebook, I took notes, I wanted to really, really know the story before I wrote it down, before I started, writing the screenplay. And so I really allowed myself a process I've never done before, which is I dreamt about it. I thought about it. I read books, I read literature, I immersed myself in different moments in Palestinian history and just really thought about how would I tell the story? What is the structure that I want to use to tell the story? I knew it was multi-generational, and then I had the image of the protest because I on one of my visits to Palestine when I was making my first film, I got caught in a protest. And so the beginning of the film came out of one of my own experiences. And so when I sat down to write the script, it just kind of flowed out of me. And I knew the entire film, like from beginning to end. I kind of knew it by the time I started writing it. But before I wrote it, I didn't know the ending. So before I started writing it, I did not know how to end the film. I had 3 generations, and I knew that Noor was going to get shot, and I knew that probably he wasn't going to make it, but I didn't know where to go from there. And then the story of that organ donation just kept coming to me. I thought it was a different movie. I kept thinking, it'd be very interesting to do that in this context. Like the moral dilemma of that is is interesting, and I maybe would want to look at that. And then I realized it was part of the story because it was going to allow me to speak directly about and to say certain things that I really wanted to say, and to kind of have a gentle confrontation, if you will, about why the world refuses to see Palestinian suffering. And that for me is part of what that final scene is. You know, it's really a confrontation, and it's really about saying certain things that I feel as a Palestinian I'm not supposed to say, but I think would be very beneficial to say. And things like, Palestinians have suffered tremendously because of Jewish persecution. Like, why do we, I feel like as a Palestinian American, I'm not supposed to say that. So I wanted to kind of create an ending to this film where we could look at everything this family has been through in this larger context of why they've been through this, why this is the case. And so that was really why I decided to bring the organ donation in.
For me, it was a moment where I really, I teared up big way, because what I felt it was, in order for you to exist, I have to die. In order for you to have a heartbeat, my children have to die.
That's right.
In order for your country to be the greater Israel, my country has to be banished. So I'm giving you the existence, and you are denying us.
And you're denying even my suffering. You're denying even my existence. You're denying my pain. And you are dehumanizing.
You're not even allowed to express your pain, because then you become a terrorist.
That's right.
And at the same time, and that's what is beautiful about this picture, among many other things, that confrontation is not violent. It's through common sense and love, and the need of create a bridge of understanding that comes from someplace else, which is not logical. It's humane, and I love the fact that the library man is not capable of reading that. For him, it's more of a black and white situation where he can really cope with the backstory of that heart.
Right.
Because if he does, all his beliefs are going to collapse in a second, which is what we're facing.
That is what we're facing. But what's really beautiful, and I thank you for saying all of that. What's really beautiful is that I have had literally people come up to me and say, I'm going to go home and rethink everything I've ever been taught. And of course, as you can imagine, it's Americans who have said that more than other people in other parts of the world. I've had Americans come to me and say, you've shifted my entire perspective of this situation.
That's a lot. As an artist, congratulations. No, that's a lot.
Well, I mean, it's I feel tremendously grateful that the film could have that impact. That is absolutely everything I ever could have wished for and more for the making of this film. But absolutely, I think, was everything I wanted from the time that I was a kid, was just to try to shift people's perspective and help them understand our experience as human beings.
I think we have time for one more question.
Thank you very much for the movie. And I just want to say you thanks, because exactly the same words that Javier just said is the same feeling that I have. That is a movie that is made from the heart and is a lesson of love. I think will be very successful all over the world because it's made from love, from feeling, from emotion. You cry because when a son dies, you have to cry as a mother. It doesn't matter the religion. It doesn't matter what you think. This is apart the politic thinking. Is all feelings. You just have to feel. You just have to think how is the feeling of a mother, how is the feeling of a country, how is the feeling of your neighbor, you know? So I think you have done with a very sensibility, a lot, very sensitive, and you have touched the heart of the people. So I think will be a very good movie for everybody.
Thank you.
Even if they are from another thinking, I think you will touch the heart, and I will distribute myself as maximum for this to help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hola, buenas noches. Felicidades. Yo quería preguntarte, porque quizás sea que tengo metido en la cabeza, claro, una idea errónea. Me ha sorprendido el vestuario de la gente que ha salido, porque yo me imaginaba a la gente palestina todos vestidos con túnicas, con burka, etc, etc. Y he visto que no es así, que quizás esté yo confundida, pero quería que me lo aclararas. Y segundo, quería saber desde Palestina qué se piensa de los europeos, en concreto de españoles y de ingleses, porque creo que ahí está el germen de todo. Gracias.
Well, to answer your first question, so women didn't really veil until the late 80s. Women in the Arab world in general really didn't veil until the late 80s. And so in the 1940s, you didn't see the hijab. You certainly didn't see the full niqab. And again, in the 70s, you didn't see that. And then again, in the 80s, you just started to see that. So the veiling and the covering is somewhat more recent. And, you know, I won't talk about why that is, but I think you can probably imagine. And yes, you know, as I mentioned, you know, there's a long history here, especially with the West interfering in our Arab countries and in Palestine, and with the British Mandate of Palestine and the British occupation. That's another film that you can go watch called Palestine 36, which I don't know if it will be distributed here in Spain, but this is a fantastic year for Palestinian cinema. And that film really looks at the Palestinian uprising, in the 1936 kind of Arab revolt against British occupation. There is a lot to unpack there. So I think the world needs to know about that, absolutely.
Bueno, pues nada, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you for such an amazing, important work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.